Hello, and welcome back to Bigfoot Lake. I hope you have the blankets ready to cover your eyes. Tonight's story is a creepy one. Now, while the origins of this one are shrouded in mystery, one thing is for certain. It is not for the faint of heart. Listener discretion advised. So with that being said, let's dive in to tonight's mystery. Our story begins in 1947 at a top-secret Russian test facility. 5 prisoners were forced into a military-sanctioned scientific experiment. The prisoners were kept in a sealed chamber, and an experimental gas stimulant was continuously misted in with the prisoners. The ultimate goal was to keep the prisoners awake for 30 consecutive days. They were falsely promised freedom if they completed the 30-day period. Over the initial 5 days, the subjects behaved normally for the most part. They talked with each other and to the researchers through the one-way glass. As the days passed, their conversations began to grow darker in subject matter. At the 9-day point, one prisoner began screaming uncontrollably for hours. He just wouldn't stop screaming. And the others didn't even react to the screaming. They were oblivious to it. The man's screaming eventually died down to a whimper. It wasn't that he had stopped screaming. He had actually torn his vocal cords and had essentially became a mute. Not long after, another prisoner began screaming. While he was screaming, the others blocked the view into the chamber by pasting torn book pages to the glass using their own feces. A few days passed and the chamber had become dead silent. The oxygen monitors confirmed to the scientists that oxygen was indeed being consumed, so they knew that at least some of the prisoners were still alive, yet there were no sounds. On the 15th day, halfway through this 30-day experiment, the scientists decided to turn off the gas stimulant and to open the chamber door. The scientists discovered that 4 of the 5 prisoners were still alive. The remaining 4 pleaded and begged for the gas stimulant to be turned back on. Upon looking closer, they observed that the prisoners had mutilated their own bodies, including partial disembowelment. They had torn off sections of skin and muscle, removing internal organs, and had resorted to cannibalism on themselves and on the deceased prisoner. They had also clogged up the floor drains by jamming in paper and pieces of flesh they had torn from the deceased victim. 4 inches of blood and water had gathered on the floor. All 4 remaining prisoners violently refused to leave the chamber, and as the soldiers attempted to remove them, one soldier was killed and another injured. Eventually, all 4 prisoners were indeed removed from the chamber. All 4 displayed extreme strength and were able to remain alive despite their horrific self-inflicted injuries. The doctors overseeing the sleep experiment attempted to use sedatives to calm the violent prisoners. After struggling mightily, they succeeded at administering the sedative doses. They had no effect. The prisoners had developed an unprecedented resistance to sedation. The doctors gave a huge dose of sedative to one of the prisoners, and upon falling asleep, he died almost instantly. After being treated for their injuries as much as was possible, the remaining 3 prisoners were prepared to return to the chamber with the gas stimulant. This was against the will of the doctors. It was ordered by the military officials. The prisoners had EEG monitors attached so their brain activity could be monitored. Before the chamber could even be sealed back up, one of the prisoners fell asleep, and just as the other prisoner had done, he died almost instantly. The single remaining prisoner who could still speak screamed to be placed into the chamber. The military commander, now in charge, ordered 3 of the researchers to be closed inside the chamber with the 2 remaining test subjects. One of those researchers frantically pulled his gun and killed the commander and one of the 2 remaining test subjects. The sole remaining prisoner stood there before this researcher. The terrified man screamed that he would not allow himself to be locked in a chamber with monsters that could no longer even be called people. Frantically, he asked the test subject what he had become, to which the subject smiled broadly before calmly and clearly stating, "We are the inherent evil inside the human mind that is kept at bay by the act of sleeping." The researcher stood there stunned for a moment and then shot the last prisoner in the heart. With his last breaths, the prisoner was able to mutter a few terrifying words. So nearly free. This concludes tonight's story. So many human experiments have taken place throughout the history of the world, oftentimes in barbaric fashion. Is it possible that through these atrocities, barriers could have possibly been broken, unleashing dark things that were never intended to be revealed? What are your thoughts? Is this a possibility? If you have a story that you would like us to share here at Bigfoot Lake, please reach out. And thanks for listening to tonight's story here at Bigfoot Lake. See you soon. Have a great night.